Hi, welcome to Gray e-learning. In this tutorial, I'm going to discuss about how to configure a telnet for a given network model with 3 router. And assuming that you already have a network, you already design a network model with a 3 router and already set a host name for all the routers and set enable password for all the routers, and also you set IP address for all the routers as shown in the given network model diagram, and also you set a static routing configuration in the routers. If in case you didn't do the configurations, please watch my previous tutorials. There I clearly explain how to set a host name, how to set an IP address, how to set a static router configurations. So first of all, you complete the watch the previous tutorial and complete the configuration. And assuming that you already have the model already designed and configured the basics, and assuming that there's a static routing already configured. Now, what mean by static router configuration mean? From any router, there are 3 routers here, router 0, router 1, and router 2. You were able to communicate each other by using the ping command. Now, what's the need of telnet? What's meant by telnet configuration? If assuming that the telnet is basically we are using telnet for remotely log into any router. If assuming that you are physically here in this router 0, you want to log into the router 1 or router 2 remotely from router 0. Once if you configure telnet in these routers. So I will always recommend in this tutorial, I will set a telnet configuration in the router 0, router 1, and router 2. So what's the benefit from any other router? You can remotely log into all the routers. So make sure that if you want to set up a telnet configuration or you want to make a telnet accessing to the router, make sure that all the routers should you have to set an enable password. And also the basic code for the telnet configurations is shown here. This is an example for how to configure a telnet in the router C. And once you configure the telnet in router C, after that you remotely log in from router 0, that means R123A, to the router C. And if then we'll see how the status of the telnet configuration. And after that, we'll set the telnet in all the 3 routers and we'll try to ping each other. So let me start the configuration. So first of all, I will just open the packet tracer, and in my packet tracer, I already having this basic configuration step. There are 3 routers, and I already assign an host name, and I set enable password and set the IP address. After that, I already set a static route. So how we can verify the static route, and if you want to see what's my configuration, so you can use the show run command. So here you can see from the show run command, I already set an IP, the host name for the first router, and there's an enable password, and I also set an IP address for the router 0. There's only one interface, and also I set the static router configuration. And let me check the router, the second router. In the case of second router, you can see the configuration by using the, first of all, let me enter into the enable mode by using the command enable and enter the password. And after that, you can use the show running configuration command. You can see what's the host name R123B, R1234B, and set as an enable password as a gray. And I set an IP address for both interfaces. There are 2 interfaces. One interface is connected to router 0, second interface is connected to router 1. And since this router is directly connected with the other 2 routers, no need to set any static routing in this router. And we have to set this is the area line VTY04. Here we have to set up the telnet if you want to configure telnet in this router. So finally, let me just check the configuration of router, the third router. It's a router C, and so I will start with the enter into the enable mode. You have to enter command enable in the command line, or is even en shortcut is enough. So then last to enter the enable password I set as a gray. Check the show running configuration. What's the existing configuration? So you can see the host name as R1234C and enable password as a gray. And we already set an IP address for the interface. and you also set a static route because there is no direct connection between router 0 and router 2. So the basic configuration is all done. How we can verify the configuration is there. You can try to ping from router to any other router. Let me try to ping to the router 0 and router 1. First of all, I'll try to router 0 192.168.100.10. The success rate is 100. That means it's able to ping. Same way, I'll try to ping to the router 0. That's 200.10. So all the basic configurations is already done. Now what I want to do, I want to, first of all, I just want to configure the telnet in the router C. First, I will configure telnet only one router, then I will remotely log in from router 0 to that router. So what is the commands? So the first command, we have to enter into the configuration mode, then you have to use the line bty04, then enter login, then put a password. You can set any password. Time being, I put as a gray, then you have to exit. So let us start the configuration. So first of all, we'll enter into the configuration mode, configure terminal. Okay, then we have to put it here line bty and 0. Then we have to put a space. Don't forget to put the space between. And after that, you have to put it as a login. Okay, the next one is a password, and we put set as a password as a gray. You can put any password. Okay, after that, you have to exit. So now we already configure the telnet in router C, and you see the configuration by using show running configuration command. And you can see the end. We already set a enable part of the line bty04. That means telnet password. So once you configure, now let me just enter into the router 0. From router 0, I'm trying to log into router 2 by using the command telnet. How I can log into the router 2? I have to use the command telnet. If you want to use telnet, you have to, first of all, you should be in the enable mode. If, example, you try to telnet from the user mode, exit from here, and now you're in the user mode, you can't use the command telnet, will not work out in the user mode. Okay, let us try 192.168.200.20. That is the IP address of this router 2. And even we'll see how they're asking the password. So let me enter the password, the telnet password. Great. Is here, even from the user mode also you can telnet. Even no need to be, should be in the enable mode. And now you see here, now actually originally we are in router A, now we reached in the router C. Now you can just enter inside by using the enter command and enter the what is the password of the router C. Now you see you are inside the router C and you can access all the configuration, anything in front of the router C. You can see, you can configure everything. Once you completed, you have to press exit. So once you press exit, we are back into router A. Now let me close, and the same way, let me try from to log in from router 1 to the router 2, because in router 2 we configure the telnet, and same will repeat. So even you can just, if assuming that you are in enable mode, you can use the command telnet 192.168.200.20, and you have to put in it. This is the password of telnet password of this router, and you see here, now you are in the enable. See all the command. So use the password of what is enabled for show IP interface brief. It will show you the interface of this router. Now it's everything fine. So let me exit from the router. See, now you're back into the router B. Now, assuming that, let me try to remotely log in from router 0 to router 1. But I didn't configure any telnet in this router 1. So let me try to remotely log in. So what I will use, now we are in the router 0. So we just use it here. Okay. Now I'll use the command telnet. Telnet 192.168.100.20. That's the IP address of this given interface. So you see here, trying to connect, the connection is closed. The reason is that there's no telnet configuration. If you want to set up to remotely log into the router 1, you have to set up the telnet configuration here. So let me configure in the router. So first of all, go to the enable mode and put the enable password, and then go to the configure terminal configuration mode. Then you have to use the command line bty0, that 4, then next line, log in, then set the password. You can set any password. I put as a simplicity, I put as a gray. After that, exit. Now we already configure the telnet in the router B, And since we already configured the telnet, now let me try to remotely log in from router 0. So you can use the previous command what we used. Okay, so let us just enter the previous same command. Okay, now you see here it's able to log. So you have to enter the telnet password. It's here. Now you are in router B, and you can just enter to be in the enable mode or any mode, whatever the access. Show IP interface brief. See here the summary of all the IP, or even show running configuration or anything. Even if you want to see about your static route, show IP route. So protocols. So IP route. You can just mention. So it will show you all this static routing configuration and all the configuration. Okay. And now you want, if you remotely log in, if you want to telnet to the router 0, we have to go to the router 0 again. We have to configure. First of all, we have to exit from the telnet window. So now you are in the router 0, and let me just put the enable password. This is a typing error. What I just given is instead of E1, so it will take some time to get it back into the right window. So we have to wait for some time, and meanwhile let it finish. Let me try to log in from this router B to telnet to the router 0, because even though we didn't configure a telnet, if you try to telnet, so what will happen? The connection will be wrong. So telnet and 192.168.100.10. Here there is no console. The reason is that first we have to set up the telnet in this router 0. So let us just see whether this window is ready now. Still it's taking time. And that's a summary about the telnets, and we have to wait for some time. And once you configure the telnets, you can remote, assuming that now you are in the router C. And if you want to telnet to 192.168.200.10. That's the interface of this particular router. You can remotely log in. So if you press gray, you can enter. So you are in the router B, and if I can exit. If you want to telnet, either you can use this particular interface, that is the 192.168.200.10, or you can even give this IP address of this interface. So I'll use telnet 192.168.100.20. Both interfaces it will work. Set the telnet IP address into the commands. You see here, we already enabled. So that's talking about the telnet, and let me just go to the first router, whether we can set it. Yeah, now it's back. So we'll enter the enable mode and set the telnet. So first of all setting, we have to enter into the configuration terminal and set so how we can set, what's the command? Line vty04 and login. Then we have to set the password. What's the password you prefer? Exit. Now we configure the telnet in all the three routers. Now from the router, you want to log into router A, to the router first router, that's router A from the router 2. So you can use the command telnet. We use the command telnet. You see here, 192.168.100.10. So 100.10, you can remotely log in. You enter the telnet password. You see here. That's talking about the telnet, and hopefully you understand the telnet concept. It's used for the remotely log into the router. In the next tutorial, I'm going to explain about how to configure the console. Thank you for watching my tutorial.